Okay, in this presentation, I'm going to talk about simplified and traditional writing systems. Why are traditional characters simplified? How are they simplified? And some misconceptions when you try to write the simplified and traditional forms of the same characters. Why are they simplified? Number one is because the language actually evolves with time. Okay, in the very beginning, we write Chinese language using 甲骨文, which means words that is inscripted on bones. Alright, as time goes by, we add on to with some logic and changes in culture, and of course increasing trends. Okay, we start to develop other forms of writing systems like for example 隶书, 楷书, and before finally it becomes 简体, which is what we learn today. So using this character, for example, this is the Chinese character fei, which means to fly. So as you can see from the left hand side, okay, all the way to the right hand side, this word actually has undergone 4 changes. Okay, from 小篆, which is the first one, it changes form to 隶书, and then followed by 楷书, and then finally it becomes what we learn how to write today, which is 简体. The second reason is that it actually makes learning easier. So as I've mentioned, the reason why we simplify is because we don't need to write so many strokes. So basically, it's actually easier, especially for the foreigners or non-Chinese in general, okay, who do not have a foundation in writing this type of words. Okay, so it's unlike English language whereby you have alphabets like A, B, C. Okay, but in Chinese language you don't have alphabets. Okay, it's all strokes and more strokes. Okay, so the reason why these characters are simplified is because you do not need to write so many strokes. Okay, the third reason is because back then, especially in China, okay, most of the population are actually very poor and uneducated. So the government back then, in order to solve this illiteracy problem, actually simplifies a lot of traditional characters, so as to allow more people to learn the language easier. Okay, of course, not all characters are simplified. Okay, some words cannot be simplified anymore. Alright, so basically those words that have a lot of strokes, like probably more than 15 strokes or more than 20 strokes, okay, there is a strong need for these characters to be simplified. Now, how are traditional characters simplified? Basically, there are 3 methods. Either you modify a particular component, or you remove a component, or you totally write a different word, right? Fortunately, most of the Chinese characters are due to the first 2 methods, which is modification and removal of a particular component. Okay, as a result, the most of the simplified characters that you see, all right, they still resemble their traditional form. So there's not much difference, okay, when you compare a traditional and simplified form, right? The last one is a complete change, which means that the traditional is simplified into a totally different character. Okay, it is very hard to recognize, and this accounts for about 10% of all the Chinese characters. So it's very fortunate. Right? Most of the traditional characters still resemble the simplified, so it's not so difficult. Now let's take a look at this first example. This is the Chinese character Deng, which means lamp. So as you can see, the right hand side is actually simplified, alright, into this new word. Okay, so these two words actually still look about the same, not much of a difference. Okay, so if let's say you are someone from China, all right, you want to learn traditional characters, you can still recognize what is this word. All right, you can still roughly guess what is the meaning, or how to pronounce it. Okay. Likewise, if you are someone from Taiwan or Hong Kong, all right, when you look at this simplified word, maybe you will have some problems, okay, because you are already so used to writing the left hand side, okay, then suddenly you look at the right hand side, okay, but it's still about the same, I would say. Both words still look about the same, so it's not so difficult. Now, this second character is the character for 热, which means hot. Alright, so in this case, this particular component got simplified into something like this. Alright, but the entire word in general still looks about the same. So it doesn't make a lot of difference. Okay, you can still recognize it. Now the third word is 担, which means to worry. Alright, 担心 the 担. Alright. So likewise, we simplify this big component into something simpler. Right? Some people actually may think that they don't really look the same. Alright, but in general, we still take it that it is about the same. Okay. Furthermore, for the simplified word, you have this character 蛋. So it actually gives you a hint to how to pronounce it. Alright. Now the second method, removal of a component. Okay, so in this character 亲, you actually remove this 键 component. Alright, and you are simplified into the right hand side without the 键. Okay, so basically you totally remove one particular component. Alright, likewise, both characters still look about the same because you still have this main character. So you will still know how to pronounce this word 亲. Still look about the same, sound about the same. The second character is 厂, which means factory. So in this case, this is actually a very big simplification. Okay, you remove this dot. Okay, you also remove this whole big thing inside, and you are only left with the outer layer, for example. Alright, so these two characters really don't look the same. Okay, except for this L-shaped thing. Alright, so they actually remove a lot of things. Now the third example, alright, this one is more straightforward. Okay, this is the Chinese character Kai, which means to open something. Alright, so in the past, we have this door component, which means we want to open a door. But now we tend to explain that we can open anything, not just a door. That's why they remove the door component, and you are left with this word in the middle. Alright, so same thing, even though it looks different, but if you see this character, you still know how to pronounce it. Okay, you will still know that, oh, it sounds something like Kai. So it should be 开门 or 开窗. Now the third method is complete change. Okay, so you can see these two words okay, 归, which means to return. Alright, these two words really don't look the same. Okay, there's no way that you can infer which is which. Okay, they really don't look the same. Now this second character is 惊, which means afraid or to be scared. Alright, so in this case, the horse radical is actually removed, okay, and is replaced by a hard radical. Okay, this simplification actually sounds more logical, okay, because to be afraid is a form of emotion, so they actually add a hard component here. So it's to tell you that this character is something related to emotions, right? And then as for this right hand side, this word 金 probably is there to tell you how to pronounce this word. Okay, it actually gives you a hint as to how to pronounce the simplified word. Now, in this example, again, these two words really don't look the same. Okay, this is the Chinese character Ling, which means something spiritual, right? You can see that they really don't look the same. There's no way to infer. Now, misconceptions okay, in the process of simplification, you may notice some patterns, okay, and you may try to apply that pattern to all other words, okay, but actually there's a misconception. For example, we take these two words, 热 and 是, right? The top word is 热, the bottom word is 是. So you'll notice that in these two words, both of them have this component, and both of them are subsequently simplified in the same manner. So you may infer that, oh, the traditional form or the simplified form of this component must be the other one, which means that these two must be related. But actually it's not, okay? If I use another word to illustrate, okay, this character has this component, all right, but it is also simplified into the same component as well, you see? So you cannot apply the logic from the first set of words into the second set of words. Now let's take a look at this word. This is called 制, which means to manufacture something. All right. So to simplify this word, you actually remove this clothes component. All right, and you're only left with the top part. Okay. So this is how it is being simplified. Okay. But then again, if you look at this word, 袭 means to attack. So you can notice that for this second character, all right, you actually only simplify the top part, but you still retain the bottom part. You see, you don't remove the E component, even though both words have E, all right? But in the second case, you don't remove the E, you only simplify the top component, 龙, into something like the right hand side, you see. So this is another example of the same radical at the bottom, but when you want to write the simplified form, okay, it doesn't apply the same logic. Okay, it's still written differently. Okay, likewise for these two words, okay, both of them have the same radical on the right hand side. Okay, and then yet they have the same right hand side in the simplified form. So as you can see, the left hand side and the right hand side, okay, the logic of simplification is actually a bit different. Okay, so this is one thing that you have to take note. Now, then you may ask, do I need to really remember the traditional characters of every single word? Actually, the answer is no. You just need to remember how to write the traditional form of the radical. And then you just copy and paste, alright? Then that is the traditional form, alright? So you do not need to remember every single word. You just need to remember the particular radical. Like for example, this word yin, and then you just subsequently apply throughout. right? Just the main radical will do. So likewise, the second row, you just need to remember this radical 思, alright, and that will be your traditional form. Okay, here there's a minor adjustment. Okay, this word should also be simplified as well. Now, likewise, for this metal radical, alright, you just copy and paste, and this will be your traditional form. Alright, so here in this case, it's actually quite easy. More examples. So here in this case, you actually need to know the bird radical. Alright, it doesn't matter whether is it at the bottom or at the side. Okay, you just need to know one particular radical and that's enough. Okay, this one is a bit special. Okay, it's up to here only. So likewise, for this one, and also this one. This is the car radical. 车. And that's all. Thanks.